The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everybody to this safety law webinar, and this is the iChemist Safety Center Safety Law number 13, and this particular issue addresses key lessons and key findings from major incidents that were related to audits in some shape and form. My name is Dr. Susanna Gyenes, and I am the Deputy to the iChemist Safety Center's Director. And I would like to welcome everybody today. Before we start with this topic, I would like to highlight that all these webinars on safety laws are complimentary webinars and will be uploaded to the iChemist Safety Center website, as well as our YouTube channel and different other forums that I will give you a short introduction in the end. And I would like to ask you to, if you have any questions or if you want to share your ideas and experience in this particular topic, I'm very happy to welcome your comments in the question or chat box. As you can see on your screen, that you can type there your questions and anything you want to share, or if you have other case studies that are interesting, or how is it in your organization that you deal with audits and follow-ups and findings. We will get into that part, so just feel free and add your comments there. Also, if you have later on some questions, then I will try to respond to them. Why is it important to talk about audits? Apparently, there are still many cases where either way, one case is that you have very, very thorough audits and they were really fantastic and good, and they revealed everything or many, many, many different things that is going on in the site. But then, for some reason, those follow-ups were not completed and those findings were not fixed or even just overlooked or ignored by the management, by anybody. It's not about blaming. It's never about blaming. It is just whether you recognize what the audits are for and how powerful this tool can be if applied in the right way. So audits are really, really like systematic examinations. And the other part is when you have the audit, but then for some reason, the audits fail to recognize what is going on in the system. So, and that's why it's really, really crucial that to understand audits, it's really a systematic examination, really a systematic analysis over the system, and to check the extent of conformances with defined standards, either company standards or national standards, international standards, and so on, or regulations, and recognize good practice and thereby identify opportunities for improvement. And I think that you would agree with me, but please enter in the chat box if you have a strong disagreement or either agreement with me. But audits are tools to further improve and advance process safety rather than threats. So some companies, some management see them as negative messages about the system, and they may take it as a criticism, but no, audits are really, really fantastic tools if applied correctly to identify what can be done in a better way and where are the gaps that can be closed and how. So that's why both internal and external audits are really those tools that help to improve process safety in the plant. Today I brought two case studies. Now, the first case study you will recognize immediately, I assure you. It has so many different angles from the investigation report. One angle is what happened to the audit findings. So what I do in the safety law is always take, except there was one occasion when not, but always take 2 cases, describe what happened, and then identify key findings or learning points. In this case, I didn't say key learning points, rather I said key findings. And after that analysis, I give some recommendations on the second page of the safety law, and that will be around what can I do as a manager, what can I do as a supervisor, process safety engineer, and in this case, auditor, and what can I do as an operator in order to improve safety and in order to avoid such recurrence in the future. Now, the first case study will show us that over the years, audits found some discrepancies, issues, problems, how you want to name them, challenges in the company's process safety and in the company's safety culture, but those were somewhat ignored, overlooked, but the main fact is actions were not taken adequately or at all. And then the second case I will describe will cover issues where actually the audits were not able to pick up on what's going on in the plant. So this is these are the 2 case studies today. Let's jump in. This particular case occurred in 2005, 23 of March. And what happened was a series of explosions occurred in an oil refinery during the restart of a hydrocarbon isomerization unit. What happened during the startup, operations personnel pumped flammable liquid hydrocarbons into the raffinate splitter tower for over 3 hours without any liquid being removed. Critical alarms and control instrumentation provided false indications that failed to alert the operators of what's happening of this high liquid level in the tower. As a consequence, unknown to the operations crew, the tower was overfilled and liquid overflowed into the overhead pipe at the top of the tower. As a result, the blowdown drum and stack was overfilled with flammable liquid, which led to a geyser-like release out of the stack. The released liquid evaporated as it fell to the ground and formed a flammable vapor cloud that found an ignition source and exploded. 15 people were killed, 180 others were injured, with major damage caused to the unit and the adjacent plant and equipment. So the consequences and the impact are really serious and really sad. Let's go back in time. This is always what I highlight in all of these safety laws and any other forums that I present, that we need to go back in time to understand what happened to the whole system. Not only what happened to that particular unit, but in general, what happened to this company. And oftentimes, when there is an investigation report, they go back 1 or 2 years' time, but then sometimes it is much better if you go back in time over 20 years even, or even before that, because then you can reveal something that has something to do with the current situation and why the particular incident occurred. In this particular case, we don't go back in time that much, but apparently, according to these investigations, years prior to the tragic explosion, there were many occasions where internal studies revealed serious concerns about the potential for a major incident due to the large number of hydrocarbon releases. So there were signals, and in this case, over 80 hydrocarbon releases in the 2000-2001 period. And those findings were communicated to the company management. Further audits between 2002 and 4 and also studies highlighted, and I quote here, inadequate level of hazard awareness and understanding of process safety and lack of early warning system for process safety exposures. Between 1994 and 2004, 8 serious blowdown drum incidents occurred, and these events were not effectively reported or investigated. In fact, external audits, one that occurred in 2003 and another one in 2004, both indicated the insufficient incident investigation system in place. And if you think about lagging indicators, that was lacking, because lagging indicators are all those the past incidents and according to their tier, reported, investigated, and so on, that are part of a very good safety culture, because they can indicate that there is something going wrong. So in addition to that, in 2003, the unit HAZOP revalidation missed addressing previous incidents with catastrophic potential. So there was also this missing piece of hazard identification and the HAZOP. And on that note, I would like to add that the iChemist Safety Center is going to publish very, very soon a guidance document called Delta HAZOP, which addresses changes in the system and addresses how to do HAZOPs in their review, and whether you need a full HAZOP or you just need a partial HAZOP. But that will come and will be published approximately June, July. Other findings, coming back to this case, from an external ISO 14001 audit revealed that, and I quote again, by not robustly addressing issues identified through inspections and audits and ensuring that a preventative element is included in the corrective action, management is not taking advantage of the opportunity to prevent undesirable outcomes. And also, an internal report a few months prior to the explosion pointed out that safety was not a priority and that may result in casualties in the foreseeable future within 12 to 18 months' time. So this was the first case that I analyzed for this safety law, which we have seen that so many different audits, internal, external audits, studies, analysis, and so on, highlighted that there are issues in the plant and apparently no actions were taken or no adequate actions were taken. Now, what happened in the second case that I mentioned that I will address, on November 15, 2014, approximately 11 tons of highly toxic methyl mercaptan was released from an insecticide production unit of a chemical manufacturing facility. The release took the lives of 3 operators and a shift supervisor inside the building as a result of the combination of asphyxia and acute exposure by inhalation to methyl mercaptan. For several days leading up to the leak, operations personnel attempted to clear blocked piping outside of the manufacturing building. 2 workers went to drain liquid from piping inside the building as a routine operation. They believed it was an unrelated pressure problem. Instead, it was related to the clearing activities. Liquid methyl mercaptan drained from the piping and filled the manufacturing building with toxic vapor. So, what are the key findings around this case in terms of audits? An external audit that was completed in 2007 actually identified the existence of the detection system for methyl mercaptan, but it missed to evaluate whether that particular system could effectively protect workers by warning them of potentially toxic environments. And that particular audit found the detection system to be in conformance just because it existed. During the incident, methyl mercaptan detectors were indeed alarming, but the system did not signify an early release of the toxic substance because the alarms were set above the ceiling limit set by standard and they were not communicated to personnel. An effective audit would identify such gaps in the system, but in this particular accident, it didn't pick up the problem. Another audit, a third-party audit, and 6 internal self-audits were completed between 2007 and 2014, and none of those actually identified or effectively corrected the many serious and long-standing process safety deficiencies at the site. The investigation revealed that the responsible care external auditors have short amount of time to analyze significant matters, and that could potentially limit the scope and the depth of the audit. At the same time, the site completed process safety management compliance audits as well between 2012 and 14, and those audits were lasted 5 times longer than the responsible care one. However, not even these audits were sufficient to identify and resolve process safety management deficiencies that contributed actually to the incident. Now, this is interesting, isn't it? That a first case audits were fantastic and they worked as they were supposed to work. So they identified all the issues, all the ongoing problems. They indicated that there will be some catastrophic consequences if actions are not taken. In this case, however, these audits that were completed on site apparently missed to identify those deficiencies that contributed to the incident. And so what can I do now? What is next? As you can see here, I have posted here the 6 pillars of process safety by the iChemist Safety Center. And these are those 6 elements that we believe that leadership across these elements is vital to achieve good process safety outcomes. Which are these elements? Systems and procedures, engineering and design, assurance, knowledge and competence, human factors, and culture. Around these 6 elements, there are the recommendations. If you download the PDF version of this safety law, you will see the dotted, colored dotted points that indicate which recommendation reflects on which element of the 6 elements framework. I have identified and wrote a couple of thoughts around what can I do as manager. However, I admit that this list is not complete because obviously there are so many other issues that a management can do. And if you feel that you have more elements to add, please feel free to share them with us. Because this is important, that it's not only that I give you all these recommendations and give you the key learnings or findings, but also it is important that you share your experience and we share our knowledge on this topic. So let's go through this. What can I do as a manager? Establish a robust audit program and develop process safety metrics, both lagging and leading, in order to check the health of the audit system. Now, we could see from these cases that lagging indicators were not in place to identify that there are ongoing issues in the plant, nor there were any leading indicators, and it was highlighted in the investigation report of the first case. Now, the iChemist Safety Center has published a guidance document on leading process safety indicators or metrics in 2015, and continuously we have been publishing supplementary guidance documents to that particular issue. The latest one was on permit to work system, and I'm very happy to tell you that the next guidance document that I will start working on with the iChemist Safety Center member companies will be on audits. And that will be a particular part of this guidance document that addresses and identifies particular lead process safety metrics on audit programs. What makes an audit program really good and successful. Now, coming back to this, to the recommendations, what can I do as a manager as well as? understanding the health of an organization's process safety management system requires a comprehensive assessment of the content and implementation of its programs. As an operator, it is vital to understand what is going on in the system, in the plant, and how the management system is, whether the culture is positive, what can you learn from the audits, and so on. It is proposed that the audit should be carried out every 5 years. That ensures that some of those involved in the previous audit are still around, so continuity has not been lost completely. Make sure that corrective actions meet the intent of the recommendations. It is a good practice to respond to the auditor's report, including an action plan for addressing agreed non-conformances and other observations made by them. And mind you, it's not only about negative issues going on, but audits can also, and normally they are actually picking up also positive behavior, positive elements of the culture. And those also help in shaping the process safety system in place. So not only negative parts that we should look at. So make sure that the audit program identifies complex issues in the facility and ensure that corrective measures are taken. Some of these are repeated recommendations, I know, but it's better to repeat them rather than just miss them. It's key that action items are tracked and effectively closed. Therefore, make sure to develop an effective system to verify that recommendations from audits are satisfactorily addressed. Make sure that the safety report or safety case provide a description of auditing activities carried out on site. And make sure that the resources and competent personnel required for each audit are planned and available. So the audit team is also really important, whether you have skilled, experienced and competent auditors in place, and that you are open and receptive of their report, so that you take on board what they say and what they write. And auditors so need to possess a range of skills, from auditing skills, technical knowledge and experience of the plant and process safety and specific technologies. But what can I do as a process engineer, a supervisor, or in this particular safety law, as an auditor? Now, here are a couple of things. So let's start to make sure that you follow the audit protocols, such as the use of questionnaires, checklists, open and structured interviews, or checking documents and measurements and observations. There are so many fantastic tools available for auditors in order to find how is the system. And during audits, make sure to focus on actual practices, such as the operators follow operating procedures and they adhere to the rules. It's also important that findings from the audit are recorded and submitted to the management for corrective actions if any non-conformances are found. Make sure to write down all negative and positive feedback from the audit, as these can be used as metrics to assess the health of the process safety management system in the company. In case you use checklists, each checklist calls for a list of action items. Such a list is only of service if the required action is taken or good reasons for cancelling it are documented. There needs to be a follow-up procedure to ensure that this happens. I mentioned in the recommendations to the management that as a need for continuation, and also that, for example, there is an organizational change and you hire or you have new auditors coming in to audit your system, either internal or external. But I'm talking about internal auditors at this certain case. Then please make sure that you have all the recordings and documentations and everything archived and available for the auditors, because they may not have the knowledge about the history of the site, so that they have to have the complete picture about what they are going to audit. Make sure, as an auditor, to be familiar with results of previous site audit findings. And of course, as manager, make sure that you make those findings and documents available for those auditors. During the audit, emphasize openness of the process and discuss concerns as they are identified. Try and look for patterns or trends which indicate chronic problems affecting multiple areas and identify common themes. So what I try to highlight here is that these pattern trends, multiple areas and common themes help to understand how the system works. And that is really, really crucial, that a very, very wide focus on the plant, on the operation is given. And I know that operators are not included in the audits, but they observe and they practice audits because they are interviewed and they are asked certain questions. So for operators, it may be a little bit shorter list of recommendations, but they are equally important. So when being audited, make sure you provide the auditors with all information about your work and any issues or difficulties that you may face. An audit is about the process, not you as an individual. Make sure to follow operating procedures, and if you discover any inconsistency in the procedures, be open about it to the auditor. Make sure to report any major concerns to your supervisor immediately in order to make sure that these issues are addressed. These two additional points, the last 2 points, are somewhat a repetition to previous safety laws. And why is that? It's because we have to make sure that so the operator of a company, of an operating site, should make sure that operators can address issues. They can talk openly, and there is a discussion, and there is a flow in communication. So it's important that they feel comfortable with sharing those concerns and issues that they see. And in fact, it's really, really a good opportunity also to involve operators in shaping and writing operating procedures, because they know what they are working with. So it's really, really good if you try to apply that knowledge that they possess. And I would like to show you in this particular case what are the current publications by the iChemist Safety Center. Except for the case studies, all the rest is free to download. So you can learn a little bit more about process safety competency and how to reach certain levels of competency. So there is a roadmap guidance document, which is a supplementary guidance document to the original one. The Occupational Health and Safety Body of Knowledge is an Australian publication that was extended with 2 chapters on process safety for occupational safety experts. But I think it's a very, very refreshing read if you want to check that it's also available for free. These are the publications that can be downloaded from our website as well. Then there is the assurance one that I mentioned earlier about lead process safety metrics, the general guidance document, the first and the second supplementary guidance ones, and you will see more to come, because we are now working on the alarm rationalization one, and as I mentioned earlier, start soon the audits. Engineering and design, it's a guidance document how to apply process safety during concept select phase of a project. And of course, you can find all these safety laws either in PDF format or in English and Spanish, or podcast, or these webinars that I run regularly. The education, it's a very interesting part of our work, because we publish all together with our university members some guidance documents that actually help fresh graduates when they start to work in industry to understand what process safety means, so that they start early in their undergraduate courses, and then they can apply those knowledge in the working environment. And it will be another publication that will be published in the middle of the year as well, and that will be a passport system introduced, so that also fresh graduates and workplaces can track the development and the CPD of these fresh graduates. And also forward thinking, that was a very popular publication that addresses action plans for industrial sites, academia, regulators, and the society, how they can improve, what is their role in improving process safety, advancing those process safety. And the case studies are our interactive case studies that are developed as a training tool in order to guide you through a case, what happened, without knowing what are the consequences, and you have to make decisions all over the course of the case study. The latest one is out now, and it addresses human factor elements. Now, these are the two links to this particular safety law on audits. One is the podcast, and one is the PDF version. The Spanish translation will come later on. I will share this information on our website, as I mentioned earlier, and please feel free to ask questions or add your comments, and feel free to connect me either in these forums or LinkedIn. I'm very happy to answer to questions if they come even later. So I don't know if you have any questions. All right. Then if you don't have any questions, I would like to thank you for your kind attention, and hopefully I will see you at my next safety law, which will address hazard identification. So thank you so much, and goodbye.